All right, good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year. It is Tuesday, January 5th of 2021, and we are excited to be back with y'all for our news update. If you've not joined us yet before, my name is Ashley Edwards, and with me are Lee Falk in the Northwest region, Jason Holmes in the Northeast region, and Vince Desatel in the Central region. So we're going to kick off our news update today with Lee talking a little bit about weather and field status and kind of what's been going on over the last 2 weeks over the holidays in the Northwest region.
Good morning, everyone. Glad to be with y'all in this new year. We hope to have a prosperous and most importantly, a healthy new year as we move forward into 2021. Just a little bit about what's going on in our corner of the world is it's kind of quiet right now. We're in a typical winter weather pattern for our part of the country, which is you'll have a cold front move through, pretty good rain event, and then cool to cold temperatures, and then it moderates just a little bit. So I would say that it's pretty average as far as weather. There's definitely plenty of moisture out there. There's no lack of moisture anywhere in northern Louisiana, I would say. The one thing that we saw on the weather this morning is the forecasters in this part of the world are starting to talk about a little bit of winter weather coming up this weekend, chance of snow, and hopefully we can avoid ice later on into the weekend, I think Sunday. But it's so hard to forecast winter weather in anywhere in Louisiana, I guess, that hopefully by the time that we talk next, it will have been a non-event. We talk fairly often with cattle producers. If you have the choice between 40 degrees and rain or 30 degrees and snow, most folks would choose 30 degrees and snow, but it just wreaks havoc on everything. So hopefully that won't come to pass. Ryegrass looks good this time of the year. We continue to have a good ryegrass year, I would say. Of course, like going back that winter weather, that would definitely knock it back pretty good if we get specifically ice. But um, ryegrass looks good. Lots of cattle turned out on ryegrass. Sure enjoying that. That has been a bright spot this fall and winter, of course. Higher feed prices, like we talked about extensively on our last news update, coupled with the higher cattle prices that we've seen. We hadn't had any auction data to report of. Most auction markets have been shut down for 2 weeks for the Christmas, New Year's holidays. But the futures markets, as Jason's going to talk about in his report, have been trending higher. There's a lot of optimism in the markets, and what that's going to correlate to is more cattle moving. Uh, like I said, you couple that with higher feed prices, and that's just more incentive. These folks that's got uh, these fall wean calves, spring-born fall wean calves that they were holding. They put a backgrounding on, and they've been just trying to hold out hope for a little better price. Now's the time that they're starting to look seriously at this, and I think a lot of people are waiting to see what this week of auction results has in store, and I think we're going to see a tremendous surge of cattle start moving in the next couple of weeks if these higher prices do materialize as they've been forecast to. Um, have talked to a few people about it, and I'm not going to get into a lot of detail here, but just as a kind of reminder, January kind of sneaks up on us. We look forward to the holiday season and everything, and then it's over, and here we are in January, and time moves off fast, and it's getting to be time to start thinking about pre-emergent herbicide options in hay fields and maybe in pastures, depending on your circumstance. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but I'll just make mention that, if you're having problems with volunteer ryegrass in your hay fields or sure crabgrass, which is something that plagues us. We've talked about it numerous times in our updates. Uh, Visit with your local county agent, talk to one of us, and we'll kind of get you pointed in the right steps. But now's the time to start getting a game plan on that. And I'll end on another planning note. Most us cattle producers, we save winter for our projects. We've got welding projects, we've got fencing projects, we've got maintenance and repair things that we put off whenever during the busier time of the year. One thing that I'd like to stress to folks is one of those other tasks that you need to be looking at is planning. Us cattle producers, we do a good job of producing a good product. Our calves, and if you're in the cow calf business, we raise excellent cattle. We do a good job at tending to what God's bestowed on us. But one thing sometimes we lack on a little bit, and me included, is planning for the future. Sitting down and getting a game plan. When I'm talking about planning, going on and making some decisions on fertilization, making some decisions on weed management, so on and so forth. The list goes on and on. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but I just encourage you that to take some time during this season to get some planning done as far as our next growing season. Because, like I said, time flies by, and before you know it, we'll be into spring and everything. So, with that, I'm going to quit rambling and wrap it up, Ashley.
That was great. Thank you, sir. Vince, I'm going to turn it over to you. Same thing. Just, what is stuff looking like in Central and South Louisiana? What has it looked like over the last couple of weeks?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Ashley, for having me this morning, and Happy New Year. Happy New Year to everyone. Hopefully that our New Year is not as eventful as last year was in terms of what's going on in the big scheme of things, but that we can get past all this COVID-19 issues and move into more personal and personal meetings where we can meet each other and go out with the clientele and do things as we've done in the past. But as far as weather conditions in South and Central Louisiana, as Leah alluded to earlier, it's been rather mundane. I mean, we get 3 or 4 days of sunshine. We got a front coming through with a little rain event. We've been fortunate, 3/4 of an inch, half inch to 3/4 of an inch, maybe up to an inch in spots. But you get 3 or 4 days of sunshine, and that dissipates pretty quickly as far as ground conditions are concerned. However, it is wet. We've got plenty of soil moisture, and feeding areas are getting pretty soupy, as we talked about on the previous update. But ryegrass has been holding on pretty good. Naturally, our landscapes here and our topography is quite different in North Louisiana. So we're on flat ground, and when it gets wet, it's wet. So it's sometimes a struggle when you get into January and February to make ryegrass grow because of wet conditions. But it's holding on remarkably. And I always, when I get to January 1st, as a producer myself, I say we got 60 days of this crap left. So hopefully, we'll get to March 1st and March the 10th, and we start to see some more spring-like weather. But however, it has been spring-like. After these fronts, we get a couple of really cold mornings with the frost, and then it moderates. So it's been really good. As far as what producers have going on in the area, still trying to combat feeding replacement heifers, and we don't stock a whole lot of cattle in Central and South Louisiana due to our ground conditions. When we get into the winter months, it's we just get too boggy, and people tend to liquidate come mid-November into early December. So they keep only the necessaries as far as the cow herds are concerned, and the breeding stock and replacement heifers, and it's a task in managing those. So we don't stock many cattle as far as that goes. The markets, Jason will touch on that, but it's been up and down. The good ones are still selling for pretty decent cash money, as Lee alluded to. Our local markets have been closed for 2 weeks, but prior to the holidays, I mean, we're still seeing some good 5 and 6 weights bringing $1.30, $1.40. So that's the really good ones. Now the lower end cattle, people are disappointed and tend to want to run with that on the street, that cattle are not worth anything. So you get into November and December, cattle get pretty thin and pretty poor, especially if you're not on top of your parasite control. Things get pretty nasty looking pretty quick. So with that being said, we're looking forward to some hay meadow and hayfield management. I'm getting a lot of calls right now on some ryegrass fields not performing like they are, and it's directly resulted to wet conditions and, not responding to fertilizer applications and that sort of thing. So people are second guessing some of their management decisions, but I just tell them, I said, wait on drier conditions and things will improve rapidly. And as I alluded to, that 60 days from January 1 to March 1 is always a highly anticipated time frame to get past a winter. Talking about winter, we're even forecasted, we get into Sunday and Monday for some snow and ice. I follow Facebook a little bit, and people are all excited about snow. I don't want any snow here. I mean, it's we got predominantly Brahman influence type cattle. That's death on Brahman cattle if you don't have cover, which we don't have cover for a lot of our cattle operations in South Louisiana. Severe enough, cold enough, drastic enough change, we'll lose some cattle. So hopefully they missed the forecast by a long shot, and no snow, no ice. So, but I think we're in for a ride on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So, with that being said, that's all I have today.
Perfect, thank you. So I want to jump in and add, we're talking about different things that producers need to be thinking about and checking in their operations. And I wanted to add in, don't forget about your bulls. A lot of you have your breeding season coming up, and want to make sure that, yes, I know we talk a lot about our cows and the importance of the cows, but don't forget those bulls play a big impact and a big role on your pregnancy rates and your offspring performance. So just a couple of reminders that it is worth doing a breeding soundness exam. It's worth getting the vet out there, having him do an evaluation, do a semen collection, check the bull. You want to do a breeding soundness exam at least 60 days out, if at all possible. If you're closer than that to your breeding season, still get them out if you haven't done one, because it's better to know that something is wrong now before you put them out with cows than later when you're doing your pregnancy determination. So 60 days is the magic number there, because that's how long it takes for a whole new wave of sperm to get ready for him. So if there were any major issues, that's the magic number there is 60 days. I always say try to go 90 days, give it a little bit longer, give it a little bit more time to correct any issues that they might have. The other thing with the 90 days is body condition. Okay, so you want those bulls to be 5.5, 6.5, somewhere in there. Expect them to lose a body condition score during the breeding season. They're out there, they're doing their job, they're burning calories, they're working. They're going to lose a body condition score. So it takes longer to put weight on. So that 90 days out, have your body condition score check, come back in, before 60 days out, do your breeding soundness exam, get those bulls looked at, keep an eye on them. You can check them 60 days out and they can be perfect, but sustain some kind of injury or something like that before you actually turn them out with the cow. So don't just stick them back in the back pasture and not watch them anymore, but keep an eye on them. If you have questions on nutrition profiles, your young bulls, you're wanting them to gain 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds a day, something like that, before you put them out. If you have questions on that, on what to feed them, what to supplement, if you think they might be running a little thin, reach out to one of us, reach out to your local agent, and they will be able to help you with that. So we're going to swap gears. Jason, if you don't mind talking a little bit more about what we've seen in the new Corona stimulus package, please.
Yes, ma'am. Before I get into that, I was just going to add one thing to, I thought Lee had some really good comments, and write those plans down. It just gives you something to go back and look at. Sit down with all of the people that are involved, whether it's employees, whether it's family members, and write those plans down. And I'm not saying that that plans don't change as you go through the year. I mean, we got to be adaptable, and you gotta kind of move with the flow. So, but if you don't write those plans down and have something to go back and look at, and compare what you're doing to what your actual plans were, it gets kind of difficult. So Lee, I thought that was some good comments. So the latest coronavirus relief package for agriculture came out over the holidays. Just to kind of give a recap there. So we had the CARES Act, and then we had CARES Act 2.0, and now we've got the latest relief package. So in the original CARES Act, Lee and I deal with a lot of cattlemen that are also contract poultry growers. So the CARES Act had nothing in there that benefited contract poultry growers We got a little bit excited whenever the 2.0 bill came out because it actually had language in there for broilers. But then as we got into it, we realized that it wasn't going to benefit contract growers of livestock at all. So this latest relief package does provide some relief for those contract growers of livestock. That covers contract dairy, pork, and poultry. Which is good for those folks. And also, if they had to do any depopulation of animals during that time, it also is going to give them about 80% relief of those depopulated animals and the cost that they incurred whenever they had to go through that depopulation process. So that's good. It also gives us another payment. I guess you call those just direct payments for our beef cattle producers. So if you look at Ashley and I were talking about this yesterday, you're gonna have to put your math caps on whenever you start doing this math, because there's payment factors in there relative to what you received from the original CARES Act and then 2.0. So you take what that total rate was, you subtract out what you received per head, you multiply that by 50%, and that's what'll give you what you're going to get out of the current COVID relief package. So and I sent out an email yesterday that had an example in it. You can go to American Farm Bureau. They've got some really good write-ups on that, but there will be some direct payments, inventory-based direct payments for beef cattle producers. So I encourage you to educate yourself on that. We have not received any information from USDA. I reached out to our local CED yesterday, sent him an email just asking if they had any statements that they wanted us to just pass along to folks as we visit with them about this new relief package. I've not heard back from him at this time, but hopefully we'll get a little bit of direction from USDA in terms of how that'll be paid. The framework for the inventory based payments, I think that's pretty much there. They've been doing that. I'm not for sure how much the framework is there for paying the contract growers in terms of the poultry, hogs, and dairy. Hopefully that won't be too painful as we go through that process. But again, educate yourselves, explore how that's going to affect your operation, and take advantage of those dollars. That's there for you. Yeah, I understand the bureaucracy that's involved in it, but take advantage of those dollars that are being offered for you.
Thank you. Do you want to go ahead and go into our market update?
Yes, ma'am. So Lee, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. So 2020 did end on a positive note in terms of most stocks and commodities. And if you follow the stock market did exceptionally well in the last quarter of 2020. All of our commodities followed suit with that. The board was strong. However, the first day of trading for 2021 didn't quite fare in our favor too well. Stocks, and I hope it's just maybe an overcorrection, but stocks did not open very well on the first day of trading for the year, and unfortunately, the way that our commodities follow those stocks, the commodities fell as well. How much of this is being driven by a lot of political banter right now? There is a whole lot of politics being played around the country. And we all know that politics play a big role in the stock market. So, in the first day of trading was not very good. Looking at how they're going to continue out through the week, we'll just have to wait and see. But to kind of emphasize on Lee's comments, Markets have been closed over the last 2 weeks, and historically, this week is normally one of our largest volume weeks of the year, just because those markets have not been open, and those sale barns and those buyers they're eager to get back to work. They're eager to start getting some cattle rolling again. So, like Lee said, the next couple of weeks, hopefully we'll have some pretty good volume and some pretty good prices if we can get this stock market to correct itself a little bit. So a lot of our cattlemen will be taking advantage of that, along with the fact that it's a new tax year. So some of those folks will be looking to take advantage of those opportunities. Choice box beef cutout started the week up $2.33 cents a hundredweight at 209.87, and select down $1.40 a hundredweight at 196.53 compared to our last day of reports, which was the Wednesday prior to Christmas. So whenever we open back up those markets, our choice box beef cutouts opened up very strong. Our select was down a little bit. In the 5-area feeding region, the volume of fed steer negotiated cash sales were higher for the last week of the year, with just over 72,000 head of negotiated sales for the week. Those cash sales ranged from 108 to 112, which was about $1 or $2 higher for the week. Most recent quotes showed February futures were trading down $2.92 at 112.10. April down $3.20 at 116.05, and June down $2.35 at 112.35. So, the markets are trading down, but thank goodness we're still around that 112, 115, and if we can stay there, that's not too bad. We would certainly like for it to be up closer to $1.20, but it's certainly not that bad. So the most recent auction reports that we have are coming out of OKC, Oklahoma City Stockyards. 500 to 600 pound steers, medium, large ones and twos, sold between 128 and 151. So I'm certainly glad that Vince made the comment a while ago that he did on some of those higher value cattle. So if you look at market reports, they typically will give you some sort of indication of whether those calves are unweaned, whether they were fleshy. And so that 128 is unweaned calves. So that 151, that's those cattle that have been weaned, potentially had a vaccination program in place. But you can see that's a big difference between those unweaned calves at 128 and everything else averaging out in the 150. So good comments there from Vince of what you can do just by taking the effort to go ahead and wean those calves on farm. Most recent reports coming out of OKC for 700 to 800 pound feeder steers sold between 126 and 131. January future quotes on those same class of cattle down 370 at 135.25. March down 407 at 136.15, and April down 375 at 138.02. I'm one of those people that my glass is always half full. So to close on a positive note, consumer demand for beef is continually to be very strong. Consumers want our product. And just like Lee said a while ago, we have done an excellent job in this industry over the years of providing a high quality product that consumers want to eat. And that shows by a demand trend. So all we need at this point, we just need our restaurants to get back to some sort of normalcy over this coming year, to where folks are not only purchasing that beef at the grocery store, but they're going back out and we can get that beef rolling through our restaurants again. But if we can get those restaurants back opened up, get those restaurateurs back in business, and I really think it will be a positive note for the beef industry as we continue to see a strong demand. And that's all I've got, Ashley. We will get back into, so we don't have any feedstuffs to report just because the markets have been shut down. But and our next demand, hopefully we'll have a good idea of what those grains are going to look like in the early part of 2021.
All right, thank you. Thank all of you for all the updates today. I'm going to wrap up just by saying that our monthly webinar is a week from today, so Tuesday, January 12th at 10:30 a.m. Again, it is a live event, but we also record it and place it online. So we have Dr. Christine Navarre. She will be talking, the title of her talk is "Where Have All the Cattle That's Gone?" So we get asked that quite a bit, and producers say, you know, they have difficulty finding a vet that will work on large animals, or they have to travel a little ways. So she's going to touch on that subject some next week. So you can find more information on that, as well as our news updates at lsuagcenter.com/beef brunch. You can also find all of our videos on the YouTube channel, which is LSU Ag Center-Livestock. And with that, we hope that you have a great rest of your week, and we will be back with you in 2 weeks.